Chapter 1176 Qinling invited to war. After Zhang Yi went back, he immediately called everyone over, informing them that they would be heading to the Qinling mountain abyss 3 days later to hunt the earth centipede that was disrupting the mining. This matter was not exactly a secret. The key few, Deng Shintong and Yang Xinxin, all knew about it. The others Zhang Yi did not notify in order to avoid news leakage, but the crowd pretty much had an idea in their hearts. As for Lu Karen, he had even prepared various props in advance for this operation. For example, lighting equipment, night vision devices, hook and claw, as well as jet flight devices, compressed oxygen, and so on. Zhang Yi looked at the crowd and began to lay out everyone's tasks. I and the other 3 Epsilons are in charge of hunting Epsilon-level mutant beasts. And among you, the non-combatants stay inside Spirit Guardian's shadow space. Auntie Zhou, Xia, Kier, and Karen and Xinxin, you don't need to show your faces. Flower, Lian Yu, Uncle Yu, and Fatty, you guys need to fight. Deng Shintong, forget about requesting support from Blizzard City, they don't have many capable fighters over there right now. Even if they send a few people, they will just make up the numbers. Zhang Yi had already had a plan in his mind, and at this moment, he said it in a very clear and organized manner. Liang Yu was holding Dragon's Roar in her arms, and when she heard that she could go to war, her gaze immediately became sharp, and she exuded a leaping excitement. Since obtaining the mutant origin and origin elves that Zhang Yi had provided her with, her supernatural abilities had received a huge boost, and her strength today was incomparable to what it was back then. She also desperately wished to participate in the battle and do Zhang Yi some favor. Uncle Yu smiled, revealing a mouth full of big teeth and squeezing his fists. Great, I've been waiting for such a day. Only Fatty Su weakly raised his hand and said with a worried expression, Boss, with my strength, I won't drag my feet in the past, right? Zhang Yi glanced at him. Your current strength is at the level of an elite team member even amongst the investigation forces. Less posing with me. But people are scared. Fatty Su had a sad face. Zhang Yi only felt funny. It's okay, you won't be afraid after a few more experiences. But the underground is so dangerous, what if there is an accident? Zhang Yi laughed, this is good. In your next life, note some intention. Fatty Su was so scared that he covered his face and cried out, I don't want it. Zhang Yi was too lazy to care about him. This dead fatty was too wimpy. He had to be allowed to go to the battlefield more often to practice. Otherwise, in the future, even if his supernatural ability index was high, he would still be an invalid if he didn't dare to make a move. He would not be soft on Fatty Su. No one was born knowing how to fight, including him, Zhang Yi. Didn't he also grow up from one life and death duel to another? What's more, Zhang Yi had planned it out. If he was only dealing with ordinary swarms, then with Flower and Liang Yu around, protecting the others would not be a problem at all. As for why Fatty Su should follow him, it was because his ability was of great use when dealing with the swarm. Earth centipedes lived underground all year round, and in reality, they weren't a cold-resistant species. Fatty Su's blizzard ability wasn't very lethal, but it could achieve a very good field control effect. Especially during large-scale battles, it was able to play a miraculous effect. After going down into the abyss, having him utilize his ability to influence the Earth centipede was able to gain a sliver of advantage for our forces. The others did not have any opinions on Zhang Yi's arrangement. Xinjiang region, as the lead of this operation, was very well prepared, and the various information provided was relatively complete. This, coupled with the fact that there were 4 Epsilons participating in the operation at the same time, gave people an incomparably down-to-earth feeling. To put it in a non-exaggerated way, such a team could sweep through most of the current kingdoms in the world today. Immediately, Zhang Yi distributed equipment to the crowd, allowing them to acclimatize in advance. Among all of them, only Fatty Su had been apprehensive and full of worry. Zhang Yi also ignored him and let him adjust on his own. However, not long after, Fatty Su suddenly took the initiative to find Zhang Yi. At this moment, he was full of heroism, as if he had completely changed into a different person. Boss! Don't worry this time, I will definitely perform well in the Qinling Mountain operation. Are there any weapons that are a bit more powerful? Organize a few for me. Ah, and that what's it potion, 2 more bottles. Zhang Yi looked at Fatty Su's unfamiliar face and asked strangely, are you drunk? Fatty Su frowned in dissatisfaction and said, boss, look at what you're saying. I, Su Chunlei, am a man, isn't it only right that I go to the battlefield to build my career? In fact, you don't need to say it, I've long wanted to ask for help. Zhang Yi stared at his face, and after pondering for a moment, a sudden flash of light flashed in the center of his mind. It wouldn't be Miss Lai going as well, right? Zhang Yi's words caused Fatty Su's face to change abruptly. He. He blushed, he actually blushed. One must know that there weren't many things in this world that could make a dead fat otaku blush anymore, except for the opposite sex. Just now, she told me that she was also assigned among the action force this time, so she will go with the team. Boss, you must help me this time. Let me be awesome in front of her for once, and maybe the 2 of us will make it. You should understand, right? In times of danger like this, girls are all softer on the inside, longing to have someone to protect her. And I, Su Chunlei, am that man. Fatty Su beat his chest to the heavens. As long as the 2 of us make it this time, I will definitely bring her back to Xinjiang. Hey, how about our child recognizing you as his godfather at that time? Fatty Su giggled, and in his mind, he seemed to have envisioned a happy future where the 2 of them would have grandchildren and sit in rocking chairs as they slowly grew old. As he spoke, the corners of his mouth involuntarily drooled. Fatty Su came back to his senses and sucked back the saliva. Zhang Yi's face was distorted and he silently took 7 steps back. You're thinking quite far ahead. I'm just afraid that things won't go as expected. Zhang Yi squinted at him, a touch of meaning in his eyes, and the hint of a smile that hooked up at the corner of his mouth was also full of teasing. The fact that Li Yangyang was close to him was extremely suspicious, and only a dead otaku like Fatty Su, who had never been in love, would be so easily tricked. It was just that there were some things that Zhang Yi didn't say anything about for the time being. He wanted to see what that Li Yangyang would actually do. But I love people with dreams. I'll do this favor. Zhang Yi very generously gave Fatty Su a lot of weapons, and after Uncle Yu's drilling of him, Fatty Su's physical ability had now improved tremendously. Carrying these weapons to fight wasn't a big problem anyway. He wasn't expected to kill the enemy. It would be good to learn to defend himself first. Fatty Su hugged a bunch of weapons and left with a great deal of vigor. Looking at him, he seemed to be imagining how he would win the heart of a beauty with his heroic performance. At this moment, he didn't know what a huge price he would pay for his impulsiveness. That was a wound that could not be wiped out in a lifetime. Chapter 1177, Pointing out the Generals. 3 days was enough time for Zhang Yi and the others to make sufficient preparations. Although Zhang Yi did not intend for Blizzard City to send reinforcements, he would not miss this opportunity to find Zhu Jing wool gathering. After all, once the Qinling Mountain mission was completed, Blizzard City would directly obtain 0.5% of the Yuan Ore's resources. Therefore, Zhang Yi still contacted Zhu Jing and asked for quite a few more supplies from him so that his heart would be balanced. Zhu Jing, of course, did not have any comments. For Zhang Yi, the energy gap wasn't big, but the millions of people in Blizzard City were extremely in need of new types of energy to survive. Therefore the exchange of interests between the 2 was also a trouble-free process that was quickly finalized. 3 days passed in a flash. The representatives of the 6 regions gathered, and the representatives of the East Sea region and the Southwest region didn't leave, and although they weren't participating in this operation, they still wanted to stay and pry for some information. After all, the mysterious region beneath the Qinling Mountain contained great secrets that they also desperately wanted to be informed of. The 6 regions participating in the operation had also gathered a large number of strong people at the captain level and above. Northwest region, Gochen, Li Changgong led the team. The subordinates, Sky War God, Qing Lanlan, 9,700 points of supernatural ability index, Earth War God, Chi Yu Kun, 9,600 points of supernatural ability index, Mortal War God, Xiao Liu, 9,800 supernatural ability index, South Pole War God, Di Fei, 9,500 points in the supernatural ability index. North Pole War God, Chen Jiahao, 9,700 points in the supernatural ability index. Northeast Region, led by Luya, Han Shanzhua. Affiliated Division, Fox Immortal, Hu Mengfang, 9,800 points in the supernatural ability index. Yellow Immortal, Zhao Changhai, 9,600 points in the ability index. White Immortal, Wei Shufan, 9,500 points in the ability index. Willow Immortal, Song Yushu, 9,700 points in the supernatural ability index. Gray Immortal, Wen Dongxue, 9,500 points in the supernatural ability index. Jiangnan Region, Chaos, Zhang Yi leads the team. Erlangshen, Deng Shintong, 9,500 points in the supernatural ability index. No official codename, Lianyu, around 9,500 points in the supernatural ability index. Points. No official codename, Su Chunlei, 6,800 points in the ability index. No official codename, Yu Jiguang, supernatural ability index 7,100 points. Chaos Battle Pet, Flower, 9,800 points in the supernatural ability index. The others were hidden amongst Spirit Guardian's shadow space. This matter was a secret and the others did not know about it for the time being. The troops of the three regions were assembled, while on the Xinjiang region's side, it was led by the Ghost Valley's town guard envoy, Jin Yuanzi, Zhong Yue. Zhong Yue had been guarding near the Qinling Mountains to avoid a riot in Earth Centipede, so he had not appeared in Xinjiang. However, when Xinjiang's mutant task force appeared, it still made the hearts of the mutants in the other regions jump as they watched. This was because under the leadership of Geocache King, Shan Daowen, a group of astonishingly imposing captain-level mutants appeared in front of them. These people were clear of their Dragon's Roar Guardians combat uniforms, and every single one of them would be a unique character when placed in any other region. 17 people all at the captain level. Zhang Yi stared at them, and his eyes couldn't help but become a bit gloomy. Deng Shintong sucked in a breath of cool air, a helpless bitter smile appearing on his face. The vast majority of these 17 people were not weaker than him, or even above him. It hadn't occurred to him that he was considered a number one in the Jiangnan region, but if he was placed in Xinjiang, he was afraid that he wouldn't even be ranked in the top 20. In Xinjiang region, there are 30 to 40 existences below Epsilon alone. Among them, the special force directly under Shan Daowen's jurisdiction is called the 36 Heavenly Deities. Each and every one of these people are strong with an ability index of 9,000 plus. And this time, they sent less than half of them. Deng Shintong said to Zhang Yi and the others. Zhang Yi fell into silence. As expected of the Xinjiang region, after obtaining the resources of the underground of Qinling Mountain, they were capable enough to cultivate a sizable number of strongmen. And within these people, there might even be a new Epsilon born in the near future. Worthy of being the number one region. Zhang Yi sighed with emotion. When the 36 heavenly deities appeared, not only Zhang Yi and the others, but also the people from the northwest and northeast regions felt that great oppressive force. The Xinjiang region didn't need to show off with them in any way, but this simple way proved their strength. Fatty Su's eyes had been searching amongst the 36 heavenly deities. And with a glance, he saw Li Yangyang, who was dressed in a dark cyan-colored combat uniform. Unlike the others, there was a slight discrepancy in the style of clothes on Li Yangyang. Although she was also affiliated with the Dragon's Roar Guardians, she was not a member of the 36 heavenly deities. Xinjiang was not lacking in factional relationships, and the mutants had their own camps amongst themselves. Qin Qigong was also just a representative figure jointly elected by all forces. Li Yangyang's codename was Blue Bird, and she came from a family power that was close to the Deng family, which was why she became Zhang Yi and the others' guide. After sensing Fatty Su's gaze, Li Yangyang slightly sidelong glanced this way, and through the transparent mask, she flashed a warm smile at Fatty Su, causing Fatty Su to feel a flutter of heart. This naturally couldn't escape Zhang Yi's eyes, and he carried some strange looks between his eyebrows. He already had some understanding of Li Yangyang's special identity, so he didn't stop the contact between her and Fatty Sue. But what would be the subsequent development, that was all up to God's will. Qin Shigong and Shang Daowen both came to the scene. Before departing, a final mobilization was done. Qin Shigong said to the crowd, "Everyone going forward this time will first meet up with the Jin Guards led by Jin Yuanzi. This operation will be led by Jin Yuanzi, so I hope that all of you will cooperate well with him and eradicate the Earth Centipede colony that is a nuisance underground as soon as possible, so as to be able to allow the yuan ore to continue to be mined at an early date, and make an outstanding contribution to the prosperity of Huashu Kingdom." Qin Shigong had reminded the crowd of these words a long time ago, and they did not have any opinions. After all, compared to them, Ghost Valley Jin Yuanzi, the guardian of the Ghost Valley, knew more about the Earth Centipede community, as well as the situation under the abyss. Regarding this operation, everyone's mindset was still relatively relaxed. With such a huge force, there was almost no task that could not be accomplished. Taking a step back, even if the trouble of the Earth Centipede could not be easily solved, there would not be any major casualties. After the mobilization was over, Zhang Yi and the others boarded the plane, and the F-37 transport plane lifted off from the airport, heading towards the Qinling Mountain region. Han Shanzhua was a big-hearted self-starter, and wherever he went, he always stood with a blood-colored crow on his shoulder, very conspicuous. After getting on the airplane, he came over to find Zhang Yi. "Little guy, let's chat." Zhang Yi looked at Han Shanzhua and said with a smile, "Sure, what do you want to teach?" Han Shanzhua smiled, "He. It's not a big deal. Just want to ask you for a favor." Chapter 1178, Jin Yuanzi Zongyue. Han Shanzhua made his intentions clear to Zhang Yi. He was hoping that Zhang Yi would be able to take him away with him if necessary. After all, this battle was in the underground abyss. If danger occurred at that time, it would be very difficult to escape. However, this would not be too much of a problem for Zhang Yi, who was number one in life preservation. Zhang Yi nodded, "This is good to say. We are all allies, it's only right to help each other." Han Shanzhua nodded with satisfaction. That big faceplate was white and clean, with a sparse mustache at the corner of his mouth. He looked like a tiger, with a kind of standard northeastern man's appearance. "I just like this character of yours. Don't worry, Buddy won't let you help for nothing. After we go down there, we will also take care of each other." He slapped his thigh. "To tell you the truth, among them, I am optimistic about you. If you run into trouble down there, I'll risk my life to keep you safe." Zhang Yi had already rolled his eyes 100 times inwardly. "If you have that kind of ability, why did you come over and ask me to help you escape? Good talk, let's make a mutual help." Zhang Yi still gave Han Shanzhua a bit of face in line with the code of conduct of reaching out and not hitting a smiling person. Han Shanzhua crossed his legs and sat next to Zhang Yi and talked about everything. At first Zhang Yi didn't feel anything. But slowly his words turned sour. "When I was hunting in Changbai Mountain, that guy, the tiger in northeast China, stood up 5 or 6 meters tall. Thanks to a big white bear I raised to drive it away. Do you know about white bears? It's not a real bear, it's a dog that grows as big as a bear." Zhang Yi, "Oh, wonderful, wonderful." After blowing a gasket with Zhang Yi, Han Shanzhua left contentedly, and patted him on the shoulder on his way out. "Something to greet, ah? Brother good make." The corner of Zhang Yi's eyes twitched. However, he was also considered to be well informed, and he knew many people from all over the world who went to Tianhai City to work. In the entire Huashu Kingdom, if it came to bragging, the old men of Northeast Nagata definitely counted. Maybe it's because the weather is too cold and lacks outdoor activities, so they've exercised their mouths quite well. Zhang Yi smiled and shook his head. He didn't hate people like Han Shanzhua, but in the past, when he was working in the warehouse, he knew a few Northeastern buddies, and it was quite fun to drink and chat with them. There's one thing, no matter whether they drink or not, as long as the topic of conversation is open to pull to the universe to go. As for Han Shanzhua's ability, Zhang Yi does not know yet. However, judging from his behavioral habits, Zhang Yi judged that he should have relatively strong melee combat strength. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so big-headed and approach others casually. Zhang Yi, for example, would be very cautious in maintaining the distance between him and others. The F-37 passed through the thick clouds like a steel dragon, quickly leaving Xinjiang and heading to the Qinling Mountain in the southwest. The crowd didn't have to stay on the airplane for too long before they reached this mountain range. The Qinling Mountain, which stretched across the center of Huaxu Kingdom's land, was the north-south dividing line in Huaxu Kingdom's geographical orientation. It was revered as the Dragon's Vein of Huaxia civilization, and was connected to another famous dragon's vein, the Qinling Mountains. Its ambling length, like a giant dragon lying on top of the earth, was quite spectacular when viewed from high above, and even though it was covered in snow at this time, one could still feel its magnificence. The airplane landed in Snow Dragon City on the eastern side of the Qinling Mountain. The crowd got off the plane one after another, and a burly man led a team here to greet them. The Ghost Valley's town guard envoy Zhen Yuanzi, Zhong Yue. He was not tall, only a little over 1.7 meters, and was over 40 years old, yet his body was as burly as a bulldog. Seeing the arrival of the supportive crowd, Zhong Yue's face barely squeezed out a barely visible smile. "Everyone, welcome to your arrival. Time is short and it's too late to rest, so please follow me to the war room first." Zhong Yue dropped this sentence and turned towards the building not far away. Zhang Yi secretly said to Deng Shintong, "This person looks a bit dull." Deng Shintong glanced at him. This kind of nature is indeed best suited to be sent to the frontier to hold down the fort in a bitterly cold land. Zhang Yi could not help but nod his head. Indeed, compared to the cozy Xinjiang, Shuilong City obviously had much more humble living conditions. A simple intersection and a few monotonous words could show that Zhong Yue was not a smooth person. The crowd was not surprised by this, and the three epsilons followed Zhong Yue to the conference room while the others waited in the hall below. Fatty Su had just sat down when Li Yangyang came next to him, her white and slender palms pressing on the armrests of the chair as she smiled at him. "There are too many people at our place, come over and sit here with you guys for a while, shouldn't mind, right?" She smiled gently, her smile easily making people feel close. Before Deng Shintong and the others could say anything, Fatty Su hurriedly said, "No, it won't, you can just sit anywhere you want." Deng Shintong and Uncle Yu had a bad smile on their faces as they watched the show, and Liang Yu couldn't help but raise her eyebrows as her gaze landed on Li Yangyang's body, her eyes implying something hard to understand. Looking again at the dozen or so people there at the 36 heavenly deities, they were all looking this way without eyes as well. Liang Yu secretly said in her heart, "She's too bold, flirting with Fatty Su so openly." Li Yangyang was indeed very bold. She sat next to Fatty Su with a gentle smile, and that tenderness in her eyes, like melting spring water, couldn't help but make Fatty Su's insides swirl. "I didn't expect you to go over this time as well. It's really great, this way, I won't feel lonely." Li Yangyang laughed. Fatty Su's ears turned red as he giggled. "I just knew that you were coming over, so I resolutely participated in this operation." "That's great, with you around, my heart is much more solid." Li Yangyang cupped her hands over her heart, her eyes were on the verge of having little hearts in them. Fatty Su was thrilled. He held Li Yangyang's hand, his small eyes opened wide in a rare moment, and said with a serious face, "Don't worry, I will definitely protect you well. Won't let you suffer any harm. Lei Lei. Yan Yan." The people around them had a vicious chill. Deng Shintong, Uncle Yu and Liang Yu hurriedly sat towards the distance. They were afraid that it would explode if they got a little bit closer. And at the same time, the 36 heavenly deities sitting on the other side were also pulling away, and were even rubbing their arms. They were also getting quite a lot of goosebumps all over their bodies from the two people being mushy. At this time in the conference room upstairs, Zhong Yue was seriously talking to the other three about the battle plan this time. Some time ago, we had already carefully explored the abyss and figured out the Earth Centipede colony's movement patterns. This is a colony with an exceptionally strong reproduction ability, especially the two Centipede Queen and Centipede King bugs of the Epsilon level, who are creating powerful offspring at an astonishing speed. Therefore, we must fight quickly and slash them. Otherwise, once we give them a chance to catch their breath, they will quickly vanish. At that time, there will be endless consequences. Chapter 1179 Confessing Abilities. Zhongyue recounted the harmfulness of the earth centipede. This kind of thing possessed an extremely powerful ability to drill the earth, and it wasn't simple for humans to hunt them when they acted underground. It wasn't a simple duel, and the earth centipede would definitely run away when it realized it couldn't be beaten. That was why it was necessary to ask for help from the Epsilon and the other regions. The advantage of numbers must be used to surround them to ensure that the operation was foolproof. Zhongyue looked at the 3 top-level mutants in front of him, his deep voice carrying a bit of innate coldness. Not fighting on home turf, even with the advantage of numbers, I hope that all of you will cooperate without reservation. Otherwise, this operation will most likely be undone. At that time, it will also be difficult for us to continue mining the rich yuan stone veins underground. Thus, all of you need to tell the others about your abilities. As soon as these words came out, the eyes of Zhang Yi and Li Changgong and the others landed on Zhongyue's body. Zhongyue gave a profound smile. I understand, so I'll go first. He raised his right hand and a yellow supernatural energy surfaced in his palm. It was a strong if jelly-like supernatural energy that quickly spread along his arm after surfacing in his palm. It finally turned into a set of orange-colored armor that covered his entire body. My ability is called Guardian of the 8 Directions, Release Department. Firstly, I can use my ability to turn into armor with a strong defensive ability. Secondly, is the ability to control the earth. I can control the earth and rocks, and it is because of this ability that I was able to hold down the Qinling mountain. To demonstrate his ability, his left hand reached out to a wall on the side. The wall instantly cracked, and the concrete in it floated over and settled in the palm of Zhongyue's left hand. So when we get underground, I can open up the terrain for you and increase your defense. After Zhongyue's introduction, Zhang Yi and Li Changgong immediately looked at Han Shanzhua in unison. After he and Li Changgong had gone through a battle, each other's abilities had been shown to the others. Only Han Shanzhua's abilities were unknown to the crowd. Han Shanzhua hummed lightly, all right then, it's my turn. He made an introduction to his abilities. Han Shanzhua, Beast-type ability user. The name of the ability is Calamity Crow. It's an ability that allows you to giganticize into a raven and can use your supernatural ability to conjure up a flock of ravens to do your bidding. The most terrifying part of this ability, however, was the Omen of Disaster, which could inflict bad luck on all targets within a 10-kilometer radius. Han Shanzhua crossed his arms and propped his chin, his eyes ghostly as he spoke to the crowd in a deep voice. I can make my enemies' movements slow, mentally tired, supernatural abilities sluggish, and doomed. Whoever makes an enemy of me will have the greatest misfortune of his life. Caw, caw. Han Shanzhua cawed twice like a crow. But the crowd didn't seem to buy the somber atmosphere he deliberately molded. Zhongyue nodded. Well, it turns out to be a powerful field control ability, which does have a huge role to play when dealing with the Earth Centipede colony. Especially when we deal with the Earth Centipede Queen and King bugs, it's a group battle, so we do need the mitigation ability. Zhongyue took note of everyone's abilities before he started arranging the battle plan. Everyone's abilities are clear now. Go Chen and I will serve as the main attackers, responsible for fighting the Earth Centipede head-on. Chaos is responsible for assisting in defense and absorbing Earth Centipede's attacks. Luya is responsible for controlling the field and applying debuffs to them. And the two of you will assist in the battle from the sidelines and interfere. He re-emphasized, Earth Centipedes live in the depths of the earth all year round, and possess very powerful drilling abilities, as well as extremely defensive armor. So if we want to solve them quickly, we must cooperate. And the most crucial thing is for Go Chen to bring his abilities into play. Li Changgong was the main attacker of this operation. After all, his I Am Heaven's will could ignore almost all means of defense and directly slash the Earth Centipede. This caused the corners of Li Changgong's mouth to lift up as he leaned back in his chair with his hands clasped over his chest, his expression carrying a bit of dejection. Han Shanzhua wasn't happy to see him in this manner and pounded the table. "I'm not happy when you say that. Then my fighting power after transforming is also fierce. Don't you know that crows eat centipedes? When the time comes, I'll reach over with that bird's beak and take a bite of a small centipede, and I'll click and chew them all to pieces." Zhong Yue calmly said, "This is just a temporary deployment. In reality, when fighting you need to adjust your tactics according to the situation. It's just that I've fought with earth centipedes and know very well how strong their defense is. To put it to shame, the last time I fought the centipede queen, I didn't even manage to break its armor." Only then did Han Shanzhua quiet down, and he subconsciously reached out and touched his beak, as if he was gauging whether or not his beak could peck through the earth centipede's armor or not. Li Changgong, however, spoke up, "Just leave the main attack to me. No matter how hard its armor is, it's nothing in my eyes." Zhang Yi had to admit that this guy should be the one with the strongest killing ability among the four. After all, unlike Zhang Yi who had all his attribute points on defense, Li Changgong was the one who used all his attribute points on offense. Then, how should the earth centipede's origin be distributed? Zhang Yi threw out a very sharp question. For this operation, the most attractive resource was the Yuan Stone vein, but for the 4 epsilon-level mutants, the origin of the 2 epsilon-level mutant beasts was also extremely tempting. Zhong Yue replied, "Of course the distribution will be decided according to everyone's contribution. If the operation goes well, then we'll distribute it evenly. However, if something goes wrong, then we need to consider who contributed how much before deciding on the distribution." Li Changgong glanced at Zhang Yi and said indifferently, "Let's just finish fighting the earth centipede first. It's still early to talk about this, and it's too much of a delay to always weigh in on these minutiae." Zhang Yi sneered, "It's better to make some things clear in advance, lest someone flip out when the benefits are unevenly divided at that time." Regarding the 2 origins, it was obvious that no one was willing to suffer a little loss. The most troublesome point was also the fact that the origin was an energy body, and it was impossible to do an even cut like a cake. When Zhong Yue saw that several people refused to let go of anyone, he suddenly frowned. If something wasn't discussed, there would inevitably be trouble again when the time came. I'll look at it this way: if anyone wants the mutant beast's origin, they can exchange it with the Yuan Stone veins in their hands. How about this? He said with a look of not really caring. At that time, if you guys want it, I can let you have my share. But I want your share of the veins. Chapter 1180 Yuan Stone and Origin. Zhong Yue's proposal caused the other 3 people present to fall into thought. The value of Yuan Stone veins was also very huge. For Zhang Yi, for example, if he was able to obtain that, he would be able to get Liu Karen to build more powerful mechanical devices as well as upgrade his weapons. At that time, Zhang Yi couldn't even imagine what their shelter would become. The origin of the epsilon-level mutant beasts was even more precious. Nowadays, at their realm, it was already almost difficult to get an upgrade if not through hunting mutants of the same level. The 2 things put together did make it difficult to choose. Not only him, Han Shanzhua and Li Changgong were also torn. Li Changgong, as the commander of the Northwest region, it would be good to get either the Yuan Stone vein or the mutant beast's origin. The former could develop the Great Northwest, allowing him to gain a higher level of support and solidify his rule. However, the latter would allow him to become stronger himself, and with enough strength, no one would be able to shake his position. Only then, the hearts of the people below would surely loosen. After all, to do that would be to give up the interests of the entire region for himself. In that case, for Zhong Yue to say so lightly that he was willing to give up the mutant beast's origin was really a bit admirable. It was also good that this was the case. At the very least, the others had one less competitor to choose from, and their options had become larger. Zhang Yi knocked on the table. "Both of these things are very valuable, whichever one we get is great. Let's make a deal here. The one who chooses the mutant beast's origin will have to hand over their share of the Yuan Stone vein in their hands. After a few people thought about it, they all agreed to the proposal so that everyone would gain something no matter what, and naturally, they wouldn't need to worry about losing anything on their own. Zhang Yi thought in his mind, originally, if the operation was successful, I would only get half of the 10% Yuan stone vein that Jiangnan region got. But if I give up the mutant beast's origin in exchange for another share of the Yuan stone vein, it could be my own. The four forces finally reached a consensus, so the four bigwigs walked out of the conference room. The people had long been prepared for battle and didn't need to delay much, so they could head directly to where the abyss was. The four men walked down from the second floor, and the mutants under them hurriedly stood up. Liang Yang gently stood up from her chair, threw a cute look at Fatty Sue, and playfully returned to the ranks of Xinjiang region. When Zhong Yue saw them, he put his hands behind his back and shouted loudly, "For this operation, you need to help us clear the small monsters of the Earth Centipede colony. May I remind you all here not to underestimate your opponents. There is no lack of powerful individuals among them, and they are numerous. If you're not careful, you can easily be overwhelmed by the swarm and die without even a bone left." After the stern lecture, Zhong Yue changed his tone again. "However, this is likewise a very good opportunity. Those Earth centipedes evolved by devouring a large amount of yuan or underground, and have the same powerful origin in their bodies as the mutants. So to all of you, they are all very tasty tonic. As long as you guys have the strength to do so and hunt down a few powerful Earth centipedes, you guys can become even stronger." The mutants below were really heartened. Resources, but they were the most scarce thing after the end times. Especially for mutants, there were only two ways to raise their strength. The first was to be nurtured by the region, with the higher-ups bestowing them with various energy substances, as well as undergoing genetic modifications. The second was to participate in missions to kill rebellious mutants or mutant beasts. However, as the regions became stronger one after another, and mutants appeared on a large scale, there were fewer and fewer opportunities left for them. Usually when there was a mission, there would be a bunch of people competing. This time, however, the operation led by the four Epsilons was definitely the highest level since the end of Huashu Kingdom. Risk and opportunity existed side by side. As long as they could survive this operation and hunt down a few powerful Earth centipedes, they would be able to grow rapidly. After the end times, the power of the individual was infinitely amplified. As long as you were strong enough, you could quickly rise to prominence. Materials, fame, power, the opposite sex, almost everything was tied to your strength. Zhong Yue's simple words made the blood of the crowd below boil. Even Uncle Yu clenched his fists, his eyes full of wariness. Liang Yu's eyes were also glazed over, and his left hand holding the sword subconsciously tightened. It was impossible for them to keep hiding behind Zhang Yi and be freeloaders. Getting stronger and becoming a partner that could truly help Zhang Yi needed to rely on their own efforts. Every mutant was rubbing their fists in anticipation of being able to improve their strength properly through this opportunity. Even Flower slowly opened her eyes from Liang Yu's shoulder, and her two-colored alien pupil flashed with a sharp light. Since absorbing the source of God, there were only two things it needed before it could truly reach Epsilon. The first was a higher-level mutant creature origin. The second was time. The former could accelerate its breakthrough, and as long as it got enough origin, it would only be a matter of time before it officially became a mutant beast at the Epsilon level. Among the people here today, there was a huge gap between the talents. Some of them had been cultivated through technology and ruthless work, and the upper limit was already locked. But anyone would want to spell out a future. After the pre-war mobilization was over and there was nothing extra to do, the crowd immediately made their way to the train station in Snow Dragon City. From here, there was a special train to the Qinling Mountain, which would take them straight to where the abyss where the Yuan stone veins were found was located. The crowd boarded the car according to the camp they belonged to and headed towards the Ghost Valley. As Zhang Yi sat in the car, Yang Xinxin's voice rang in his ears. "Brother, for this battle, try to extend the time as much as possible." Zhang Yi slowly opened his eyes as he inquired, "Oh? Why?" According to the previous plan, it was not suitable to delay the battle with the Earth Centipede for too long. Otherwise, letting those two epsilon-level centipede queen and centipede king bugs go free would likely lead to endless consequences. And in the middle of Spirit Guardian's shadow space, the people inside could actually observe the situation outside. Yang Xinxin had already observed the situation in Shuilong City when she arrived. She said to Zhang Yi, "Judging by the size of Snow Dragon City, I think Xingjing actually has reservations about us. The scale of the Yuan stone vein is much larger than expected." A flash of color flashed across Zhang Yi's eyes. Is that really the case? However, this is not unexpected. It was natural for anyone to want more of a good thing to take up more of it, and the Xingjing region was concealing the true reserves of the Yuan stone veins so that they, as the mining dominant, could obtain more resources. It was just human nature.